So, I'm sorry 2017 Becca, but you are a prude. This is the first video I've watched and reacted and been like, what the fuck am I actually talking about? So I don't know exactly what it is, but you guys really like it when I react to my old videos, especially my very first ones. This video that we will be reacting to today has been specially requested by Ben Reads. It is a book tag that I posted called the Books I Probably Will Never Read tag, and it is the 8th video that I ever made on my channel. So the date on this one is the 28th of August 2017, so around a month and a half after I created my channel. Now Ben messaged me on Twitter and asked that I react to this video because apparently he knows for sure that I have read some of the books that I said that I would probably never read, and also he feels like some of my opinions have now changed since making this nearly 3 years ago. We're coming up on my 3rd booktube anniversary in around a month. Actually, it's exactly a month from today. I don't really have any predictions of what we're going to see in this video. I honestly have no recollection of what is actually in here. So this is going to be as much as a surprise to me as it is to you guys. And yeah, I'm a little bit nervous actually because I remember nothing. Are we ready? I'm not ready. Let's go.
Hello, my name is Becca. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing you the books that I will probably never read tag.
I just really hate how I talk in my old videos. That's not even a reaction to the video because I've reacted to quite a few of my older videos quite recently. Did I used to talk like that? I want to attribute it to a lack of confidence and not wanting to like project my voice. But girl, you're really damn quiet. My eyebrows were bare though, and my face wasn't as chubby as it is now.
First of all, I just want to point out that I'm the type of person who will read a book regardless of whether I like it or not, or think I will like it. So most of these books I probably will read.
Let's just address this point that I just made. I'm still the same. I have a whole ton of books on my shelves that I'm not super interested in anymore. But I do kind of want to read them just to say that I've read them, whether that's because they are the really popular YA books like Falling Kingdoms, although I do still really want to read Falling Kingdoms, or whether it's something that's really popular but not usually my thing like Cloud Atlas or The Goldfinch, or whether it's a classic. There's tons of classics that if they weren't classics I really would not be interested in reading them. But yeah, I also still very rarely DNF a book. I will see a book through to the bitter end.
I'm gonna rename this tag too Books that I probably will read even though I really don't want to. All the books that I've used for this tag are all from my shelves. There are probably more books out there that would fit all of these questions. I just couldn't think of any, so I just looked at my shelves and picked ones for the questions.
Can we talk about how shit I was at editing as well back in the day? I think I've only mentioned it on Twitter once, but I had asthma when I was a kid. I still have asthma like a very slight bit now, but not really. But from being short of breath when I was a kid, I will sometimes pause at an unnatural place in a sentence and take a really deep breath, and I don't really realize that I'm doing it. So I now, and for a very long time, have edited pretty much all of my breathing out of my videos, but not in this one. Your girl is breathing weird.
Question number 1. A really hyped book that you're not interested in reading. For this, I picked Divergent by Veronica Roth. I just really don't want to read it. I don't know why. It was around at the same time as The Hunger Games and things like that, which I absolutely love. The Maze Runner I've read, which I thought was alright, but Divergent I have literally no interest in. I think it doesn't help that I watched the film and I didn't like it and I didn't understand it, so I don't really care about reading the book if it's going to be anything like the film was. I read The Maze Runner not that long ago and it was really underwhelming, and I get the feeling that Divergent is probably going to be the same. I already know who dies at the end, and I just think that I've generally just grown out of the generic dystopia, limited world, not a lot of substance kind of thing. But saying all that, I probably am going to read it because I personally believe that you should read every book just to say that you've read it for some reason. So even though I don't want to, I will still read it, and I may even end up liking it. Question number 2.
Okay, so we have many points to address here. Okay, so the belief that you should read every book even if you don't think you're gonna like it. That's not necessarily a belief system that I have, it's just something really weird and fucked up that I do. I believe that you should only read books that you want to read. You should prioritize. If you're not interested in a book, don't bother reading it. But for me, I will force myself to read books that I'm not necessarily interested in, because I do believe that if people people think they're good, then they are good, and I like to take an objective approach on that and see for myself whether I think they're good, or recognize the good points that other people recognize, even though it might not personally be to my taste. The second thing I'd like to address is saying that I've grown out of the typical dystopian stories with no substance. I don't think I have. I actually really like dystopian. There are plenty of dystopians on my shelves, although I will admit a lot of them are adult now that I'm interested in, but I do really like me a dystopian story. It's one of my favorite genres. As for Divergent as a book, as a series, I have since read the Divergent series. I believe it was in 2018. My main challenge for the year was to read the oldest book on my Goodreads TBR, because I never clear out my Goodreads TBR, so everything that I've ever wanted to read is on there, and Divergent was one of the first things to come up. So I did read the entire series. I really liked the first book. I think I gave it 4 stars, but as the series went on, my interest just continued to wane and I really didn't like it. I did know who died at the end and I didn't care when it happened either. Regarding the Hunger Games, which I said I love, I've since reread the first 2 books in the Hunger Games and I no longer love it. I love the plot, I love the story, but as a book I don't think it's that good. And the Maze Runner, I said here that I think it's alright. I don't really like the Maze Runner. The first book I think I gave 3 or 4 stars, but it would definitely be a 3 at most. I think that the Scottish Trials turned out to be my favourite book in the series, but the rest of the books in the series I just do not like.
Question number 2 is a series that you won't start / won't be finishing, and for this I've picked The Enemy by Charlie Higson. This one is actually one that I won't be reading. I started it maybe early this year or last year. I read about 40 pages and I just could not continue. It seemed to be just a group of kids. I think they were all boys in some sort of hiding place. I didn't like the writing style at all. I think if I could have put up with the writing style, then maybe I would have continued, but it was just simplistic. There was slang that I didn't understand, kind of like the Maze Runner, but not written as well. And I just generally did not like anything about it.
So The Enemy by Charlie Higson, I have still not read that book. I still have no desire to continue reading that book. I don't know what it was, but something about the first 50 pages of that book just really turned me off, and I have absolutely no desire to go back. It was one of the books that I bought as a souvenir when I went to New York in 2014, and the other book that I bought was the Barnes & Noble edition of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So I do still own The Enemy, but I have no intention of reading it. Do I still own it? I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't actually see. Yeah, I do still own The Enemy, and I'm reluctant to unhaul it because I did buy it in New York. Like, I went to Barnes & Noble and picked it up myself, but I will probably never read that book or the series.
Number 3 is a classic that you're just not interested in, and for this I've picked Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. I did buy this for £1 because I'm trying to collect the Penguin English Library editions of classics with the pretty covers. So because there's so many of them, if I see them secondhand, I will pick them up no matter what. However, this is a really, really thick book, and as far as I can tell, it's just about society and people, probably women, just backstabbing and bitching and generally not being very nice in upper class society in maybe the 1800s. And I feel like with classics now, I do want to read them because I believe it's important to read classic literature, so that you knew what came before modern literature. They're classics for a reason and they should be read, but I am more interested in classics like Moby Dick and Robinson Crusoe and Treasure Island that are action and adventure.
Okay, so Vanity Fair, yes, I did pick that up at a charity shop because I want all of the Penguin English editions. I'm still collecting those. I do actually now own Moby Dick, Treasure Island and Robinson Crusoe, although I haven't read any of them yet. My view on classics has changed a little bit. I don't believe that you should force yourself to read classic literature. I don't feel like reading a lot of classic literature makes you more valid a reader or makes you more elite or anything like that, but I do still want to read a lot of classics because I'm interested in literature as a whole, and they were the first of their genres. They are classics for a reason, although I do know a little bit more now about how classics are selected. So they do all have some merit, or there is a reason, or they were pivotal at the time that they were printed. Vanity Fair, I still don't really know what it's about. However, I said in 2017 that it seems to be about society and probably women bitching and backstabbing each other in high society in the 1800s, and that honestly sounds like a great time time to me. Like, I love some bitchy backstabby stories, but as you guys know, I am predominantly a fantasy reader. I struggle with historical fiction, which is one reason why I struggle with classics. Will I never read Vanity Fair? Maybe not, but also I own it. Bookopoly may even make me read it someday, so I'm not saying never on that one, although it will never be the first one that I reach for.
Question number 4, I don't have a physical book for this, but it is any genres that you haven't read. Now, I have read a little bit of everything, I think, but I haven't read a lot of sci-fi apart from like The Host and Lunar Chronicles. I have read one erotica series, which I bet you can guess what it is, but I would probably never read it again. Like, even if I wanted to read trash, I just wouldn't read erotica. Like, even if I wanted to read trash, I just wouldn't read erotica. It's generally not erotic and it's just terribly written, so I'm just not even gonna bother at all.
Oh my god. Okay, sci-fi. I have not read very much sci-fi, or I had not at that time. I have since read some more sci-fi. I've read the Long Way to a Small Angry Planet series, which is called the Wayfarer series. I've read the Illuminate Files. I've read Lifelike. I've read Aurora Rising and Aurora Burning, and there is quite a bit. Oh, I've read Ready Player One. I read I Am Legend. I do really like sci-fi. Sci-fi is one of my favorite genres now. I think just at this time I hadn't read a lot. But can we address the erotica statement? Okay, so at the time I had only read one erotica series. It was 50 Shades of Grey. At this time, I have still only read one erotica series, which is 50 Shades of Grey. But the statement that I probably would never read erotica, as you guys know, over this last year, I have been reading more fantasy romance. While I've not been reading explicitly erotica, I have been reading erotic romance. Like, I literally, the last book that I finished was Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, which, yes, it is not erotica, but it is a very smutty romance. There is erotica in there. I take back all of that because I'm actually really interested in erotic fiction right now, because I love me my romance. At this time, 3 years ago, how old was I? I was 24. I still lived with my parents, and I have not lived a sheltered life by any means, but my reading taste was still very much skewed to young adults. I wanted different things from fiction at that time. I wanted like your cutesy teenage romance, but the fact of the matter is, I'm now 27. I've outgrown the cutesy romance stuff. I do find a lot of young adult romance quite lacking now, because I am obviously significantly older than I was. I want to read about people my own age, or, well, not quite my own age because I'm resisting getting older, but like between the ages of like 21 and my age, or 21 and 30. And a lot of the time sex does come into that, so I couldn't avoid reading it really, even if I wanted to. But I enjoy me some erotic fiction. So I'm sorry, 2017 Becca, but you are a prude. And never mind calling erotica trash, you girl, you are trash.
That I don't think I've read anything from is historical fiction. No, actually I tell a lie, I did read the Look series, which I guess kind of counts, and I actually really enjoyed it. Aside from that, no historical fiction, and I know a lot of people really like it, but I don't think I'm really interested in it. I would never pick up a book just because it's a historical fiction. It's just not the kind of thing that I'm into.
So, as I just mentioned, historical fiction, I still don't read historical fiction. I do really like the Look series. That is why I was shocked at me saying that I don't like high society women backstabbing each other in the 1800s, because that is what the Looks is, but with romance in there as well. I tried to read Philippa Gregory's young adult historical fiction and I didn't like it. I would say I'm interested in some historical fiction, in that I quite want to read The Book Thief. I haven't read that yet, but as a genre I'm not really into it at all. I would say that the main reason for that is that I don't like the sense of propriety. If I'm reading a romance, I don't want it to be about people courting. I don't want people are shocked if they glimpse the sight of a knee and things like that, and I prefer stories where people have more freedom. I just don't like antiquated social structure and antiquated social behavior, which is why historical fiction generally does not speak to me. However, there is like modern historical fiction, like books that are set in the 80s and the 70s and things like that, like Daisy Jones and the Six, that I want to read. I really like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which starts off in, I think it's the 50s. And there's also things like My Best Friend's Exorcism, which is an 80s horror story that I would be interested in. And it is technically historical fiction because I believe that the genre classification is a book that is set in a time period that is previous to the time period it was written in. But I know know some other people say that it has to take place alongside events in the past. So for example, if a story is set around the time of World War II, then it's a historical fiction. I don't really know, to be honest, because I'm not invested in the genre and I don't read historical fiction. But yeah, it's not my favorite. You will hardly ever see me reading it.
Is question number 5, and all of the answers that I've given apply for this question, as it is a book on your shelves that you probably never read. And as I said at the beginning, all of the books that I picked are from my shelves. But for this one in particular, this is something that I have been collecting forever and still just one book missing. I started my book collection because I wanted to read. I started with film adaptation.
I'm really concerned about what this book is going to be, guys. I feel like I may have read it. There's 2 options in my mind and I feel like I've read it.
And TV adaptations. I picked up a couple of these books even though I tried to read them when I was really, really young and I shouldn't have done. And I didn't like them.
I've read this book.
Now I have almost all of them and I'm just putting off reading them because there's like 15 books and I'm completely not into that genre anymore. And that is it called the Sookie Stackhouse series, or True Blood as most people will know it as, by Charlene Harris. I have all but one, and the reason that I don't have the last one is because they all have similar names. Like,
I still do not have the last book in that series, not the last book, but there is still one that I'm missing and I can never remember which one it is.
They all have dead in the title and I can never remember when I see one secondhand which one is missing. I have no idea. But I'm just really, really, really putting off reading them because there's so many and I don't think I'll like them because I'm really not into supernatural fiction anymore or paranormal romance. The few pages that I read when I was way too young, I remember being like vaguely pornographic, and that's also something I'm not interested in.
It's such a prude.
But the main reason that I read YA is because I like books without explicit, unnecessary sexual content and very weird. Like I find that a lot of adult fantasies tend to be quite creepy and overly sexual and violent for unnecessary ways. Like there's no reasoning behind it. So I'm not sure how I feel about these. Like with the others, I will, apart from The Enemy, I will probably read them at some point, or at least give them a try. I'd like to think I'm going to get at least a few books into the series before I DNF it if I do. But now I've just had it so long, not into the genre anymore, but I do feel compelled to read it.
Okay, so that was the last question, and oh my god, why am I such a prude? Once again, a couple of things to address here. The first one is that I have read the first 4 books in the Sookie Stackhouse series. I still kind of stand by what I said in that I'm not necessarily too interested in paranormal romance. However, I believe there are a couple of reasons for that. Now, the first one is that paranormal romance was extremely overdone in young adults, and that does stem from the adult version of the genre, which is not always the best. I don't really like really long series like True Blood, where each book has like, it's normally a mystery case to solve and then there's also little bits of a bigger plot. It's not my personal favorite kind of series. They remind me of TV series, how each episode is like a self-contained story, and I do not particularly enjoy that. However, having read the first 4 books in the Sookie Stackhouse series, I just generally do not like that series, but I do like paranormal romance when it is well done. I've heard extremely good things about the Fever series, and I've heard extremely good things about anything by Nalini Singh, and the first books in those series are ones that I've acquired recently because I am very interested in reading them. Now, unnecessary explicit sexual content in adult fantasy. I was talking about paranormal romance for a start, which is very different to adult fantasy. I do kind of get where I was coming from. I was coming from the fact like Game of Thrones has lots of rape scenes in it, and there's also like women are just kind of used and it's just kind of commonplace and in the background. But adult fantasy necessarily does not always have explicit sexual content that is not necessary. Who the fuck is past Becca? This is the first video I've watched and reacted and been like, what the fuck am I actually talking about? And as I just mentioned in regards to erotica, I do not mind my explicit sexual content these days. The Sookie Stackhouse series, I don't like the mystery elements necessarily. I don't like the writing, I don't like the characters, but the best thing about that series is the smut. The smut is the best written and most compelling elements of that series. I think I may have just had a bad feeling about it because of my experience trying to pick it up when I was like 12 and being like, whoa, what is this? But yeah, wow, that was eye-opening. I understand why Ben wanted me to react to that video. So that was the last question, so I'm not going to torture myself by watching my outro, because by the looks of it, it takes me a minute and a half just to close out the video for some reason. Let me just say that Becca is different now. I am not the same person that I was 3 years ago. I'm actually shocked at how different my opinion is now, especially in regard to fantasy romance, because at that time I had already read A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury, and they were my favorite books. So I don't really know what happened. I don't understand myself. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this reaction video. It has been a wild ride. If you have any other videos from my past catalogue, I mean, there's 400 videos there for me to go through. So if there are any videos that you would like me to react to in the future, I don't want to do too many of these, but like I can sprinkle in a few here and there. So if there are any where you think that I sound like I'm on drugs, because my opinions are so different to what they are now, then let me know down in my comments. But aside from that, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're a go and nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.